But I found the thing that I wrote said to those kids in high school around their moving to the top 1 to 2% of their generation, and I did give them different people, that they would know their brands and what they built, but they wouldn't know that person. But we were just talking about like the difference between ideals and passion. In every single case where those people achieved, they had a passion, but a lot of people confuse that with ideals or being idealistic. And the difference is a passion is the ability to take the world as it is and do something with it. Idealism or ideal is more where people get confused and they say, well, if the world was like this, I'd be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So change the world first, and then I'll do that, as opposed to do that and I'll change the world. It is a difference, but a lot of people confuse it. I see it all the time. And so I remember I was at a session recently, well, not that long ago, maybe it was last year or the year before, and it was another tech conference, not Eureka Fest, and they have the lunch, on the break. And I was sitting next with a group, and there was some guys in there, guys and gals in 28-ish to 30, all in emerging tech startup stuff. And they had moved over to what other people should do with their money, their personal money. Like people should give more, people should do this, and rich people should do that, and all that stuff. And I said, hey, that's good. And a lot of those people do that. That's their own personal choice. I said, but why aren't we talking about how you can achieve something, make some money, and go do some good things with it? Worry less about what other people are doing, and why don't you do something to build value first and generate whatever it is, resources, and then you go change the world. Always talking about other people, what they need to do, is not another good focus of time. So we were talking about that. And those kids in high school, they had their own examples of this. Like it's that relationship between, I'll give you one Southern thing that I also use. Even though this podcast is not going to be a perfect example because you're doing an interview, but you and I aren't working on a business venture together.
Right.
But let's say we were. There's got to be a really good ratio between talking and doing. And I look for that ratio. Like, less talking, more doing. And so I would say that's the last one, but that's more of maybe a Southern way to say it. But I do look for that. And although an interview is not a great place to practice it. And the only other things I told those people is that your life, your issues, your demographics, they're just factors like your generation. They're not descriptors of what has to be. And for both of those high schools I spoke to that time, that was very relevant because they would just take I swear to you, the pressure they were feeling like, if I don't do this and don't get in this school, these kind of schools, then I'm not going to get a good job, and then this. And I'm sort of going to be limited. And I'm sitting there going, guys, I mean, not to knock it, but, at PepsiCo or someplace I joked that the measure of success was how many Harvard people I had working for me, not whether I had been to Harvard.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't mean that as a power thing or anything else. It was just like, why just because I didn't go to Harvard, couldn't I run the thing? Do I default to someone that went to an Ivy League school? I mean, it's great that they can go, and I've met a ton of smart people, and some of my friends are there. I don't knock it at all. But at the end of the day, all these other things we're talking about today, they matter a lot more than what school you went to. Guaranteed. Unless you just get hooked up with the right connection at school. They just, say, here's a job, and here you can make $1 zillion a month and whatever. And I just said, focus on results, not the effort. Learn to deal healthily with money, yours and other people's, because I deal with, as you know, and you hear about, people are always pitching here and other places to get other people's money. But they don't always deal healthily with it. I can't tell you how many emerging tech companies I've walked in after the fact that have already blown through their first raise. And nobody's giving them money anymore. Then you got to figure out how do you rebuild this because they've lost their credibility. So, your resources are other people's resources. They're precious. Treat them that way. We were talking in those schools really specific about face-to-face dealings because I just asked how many people, if they had a conflict with somebody, are going to do it electronically or through a third party of posting Facebook or something else. And 90-something% said they're not talking to the person first. It'll be like an end around. I said, but okay, have ever you experienced that? And they all go, yeah. I go, how's it feel? They go, it sucks. I go, would you rather have a person talk to you first? Yeah, definitely. Same thing in companies, same thing anywhere. And the last thing I said was work-life balance is something you earn and create, not something else someone else is responsible to give you. I have never been in so many conversations over 10 years in my life where people were talking to me about work-life balance when they're 25. I do think it's important to believe in what you're doing. I do think, but at the end of the day, you are practicing. You are trying something out. It may not be the thing. It may not be the balance, but if you're doing something and your goal is to do it well and learn, whatever it is, it's going to lead you somewhere. But you may not have the perfect balance because, a lot of times you have to throw a lot of effort to something to get it somewhere. So I'm not saying work-life balance is not important because I could say I could have gone back and done a better job of that. But I can say that it's something you carve out as opposed to your, you go talk to a company or you go talk to somebody and you say, oh, can you tell me what you could provide for work-life balance? And I'll say, look, the last place you need to go, if that's what you're looking for, is a startup.
Right.
Maybe go to a larger company that has, PTO, certain amount of vacation, certain this and all those rules. But hell, startup companies, they're not 100 of you running around. If they hire you, they need you. So it's like, don't go to I guess what I was saying is, look at the environment you're going to. Don't go to a startup and say, oh, my biggest thing is work-life balance, because you're like in the wrong place. So that was really the point. That's my last stuff today.
There's one of them there that I'm hoping you could expand upon a little bit, which is money health. And I think it's important. I'm not knocking you guys, but I have seen that too. And I'm hoping you could share some wisdom here.
Well, listen, a lot of businesses and people, money in the last 15, 10 years, whatever, even longer than that maybe, has been a lot more readily available to people because of credit and lending. So if you look at the amount of debt, there's all kinds of articles on that. But the level of financial sophistication, when you start talking about, look at what we're going through right now. Okay, there used to be something called the financial pyramid. And years ago, they used to teach it. And it talked about building a base where you had 6 to 12 months of your burn rate, personal. That's the first thing you saved. You didn't go dump it in the stock market because, people say, oh, I don't want to miss the stock market. But the emotional thing is, think about right now. You have to figure out, with what these limited resources, my first 5,000 I've saved, my first 10,000 I've saved, what's more impactful to you? Missing out on some of the upside or the pain of the downside? Right now, today in the market, people are experiencing the pain of the downside. They felt the same thing in 2008. For some people, depending on where they were in life, that was hard to recover from. Now, obviously the market recovered, and I'm not saying over time that it does. But let's say you had $10,000 and you rolled it all into higher risk equities. And you lost it all. You ain't getting that back. Starting from zero. So the whole thing is this idea of creating, the reason they call it a pyramid, because at the bottom you did create, and I've been using this strategy and philosophy since I was 25 years old. And don't think I haven't had a good time. I've gone to a lot of places, had a lot of fun.
Right.
Consumed a number of beers. So it's all been good, and not shirked myself of going to do fun things with my friends. But I always kept in mind that, okay, I need to build a baseline because let's say nothing else happens in the economy that I need to deal with, but I want to go off and do something different. When I have a cushion built up, I can go do that. Now, a lot of people think of that like coming out and go, oh, I'll go travel in Europe for a year. If that's what you want to do, great, and those experiences lead. But I'm talking about now when people are working, a lot of times if you talk to them about the level of debt that they hold for everything they have and the obligations on them. I've watched a lot of young people, when things did move, have to refinance or declare bankruptcy during certain times, because that having the general principle of the financial pyramid was to say, listen, if you're, Christopher, if you're spending $4,000 a month in your burn rate, just have 6 to 12 months of that sitting in low risk investments.
Cold storage, yeah.
I mean, not in your mattress necessarily, but T-bills or, high quality fix, and they may not pay a big return, but it's there. Because then as things like what people are experiencing now, it may take a few months to work through, but it's cool. And I've used this for a long time. And one of the things that my philosophy or my goal was, although, you don't control everything, my goal was to be financially independent, starting from where I started. And you got to understand, when I first started FedEx, I started as 20 hours a week as a part-timer, financial intern. It's no way to think you're going to, what's the career look like? You don't know. But I got that goal when I was about 25. And I said, I want to be financially independent by 40. It's kind of the other thing, power of possibility. I didn't know I wasn't making a lot of money.
Right.
But also I see being financially independent not as a certain number, but as freedom of choice, to get to a place of freedom of choice where I did or didn't have to do something. And I walked away from, I was close. I think I walked away from the Fortune world at 41. But it wasn't about making, I got to get to this number so I can, quit or whatever. It was more like saying, am I to that point where now that there have been some corporate changes, do I want to go do some different things? And am I in a position to do that? And I think because I had used this financial pyramid strategy, I had enough of a baseline to say, you know what, I can wander around a little bit. So at that time, I had, not long before that, had bought some property in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and began setting it up. It was under construction to spend half the year there. And that was just a great time to be back and forth, because it allowed me to do some much more thinking about what I was doing. Well, when I first did it, I actually wanted to spend more time at the beach, but and then the other thing came next. But what I'm saying is, when I did say, had there not been some corporate big fortune changes where they wanted me to move again back out of California because of a failed merger between two public companies, I just said enough. But I was in a position to say enough. And I said, I think I need to get off this, hamster wheel and think about what next. But there was a good year and a half. I basically just told people, like, if you're going to talk to somebody and they, I'm saying, don't have a card, don't do anything, like, I'm thinking. And, working out or whatever other stuff you're doing, but just thinking. I had the ability to take that time to think. And it was really because of a strategy I put in place when I was 25. So I'm not talking to me now. I'm talking to me, whoever's 25 now or 26 or whatever. Is like, it's not about giving up experiences or anything like that, because I don't even want to go into the stories of the experiences, because some are a little crazy. But the point is, by at least keeping that in mind as I made those decisions, it allowed me to get to that point where I'm saying, okay, I've had enough of this. Now, I think I'm going to take a little time to figure it out. I didn't wander across Europe or anything, but I did the mountain beach thing. And then said, okay, I think I'm going to go and get some experience in a smaller company, but that's already established. But because I have turnaround skills, get involved with something that does need that help. And that Canadian company was that at the time. And because they had a lot of the business conditions or circumstances that I had addressed before over here, so I could apply them in a smaller way. Now, it does make you, learn to apply those things on a smaller scale, but that's where I think the early experience at Fedex came because there weren't tons of all the resources around at the beginning. So you had to wear a lot of different hats. So that helped me out even then. And having done some entrepreneurial things at big companies, that helped out a lot. But all I'm saying is this going back to your question about financial health is having a pyramid strategy instead of here's what the typical strategy is in the financial advisor or consultant world. If you're 25 and you've made any money, they're pretty much, if you have any money to really give them to invest, other than you doing your own money markets. And listen, I don't even want to get into the cryptocurrency thing. If people have made a lot of money there, I understand it. I understand a lot about the blockchain thing and the technology behind it. But listen, the people that have been good at that, great. But the point is, not everybody has, and not everybody's made money. But the point is, if you're building any money somewhere, you got to take some off the table and put it here and build up this kind of strategy, this pyramid that allows you to allocate correctly and to create. And for me, what it was, I wanted to create freedom. So I think I could directly relate it to freedom around there's going to be a point that I come to, and I'm going to go really hard until then, but I'll kind of know when it's getting there. And a failed merger kind of just, and somebody asked me to come back and take a job I didn't want to take, I said, this is probably the time I need to think about this. Had that merger not occurred, I probably would have stayed longer. But it's okay because there it was right there. There's the time. I didn't control whether that merger, the Federal Trade Commission controlled that. But once it did, it had an economic impact. But because I already had done this over here, I could say, okay, you know what? It's time to maybe go think about what's next for me because I think I'm getting a little lost in this because I've been doing it like really fast paced for a while. So all I would tell people is to have their own strategy. It's amazing to me. And I told people this after 2001 and 2008, I think. I was in a college class speaking, and I said, okay, and it was after one of the economic downturns. And I said, how many of you have cars? There was a lot of them, obviously. I said, will you loan me your car today? I'm good for it. I'll show you a balance sheet, or at least enough of one to satisfy you. And they wouldn't loan me their car. I just want to drive around for the day. But I can pay for that car if I do something to it. Yeah, it's your asset. I go, do you know that some of your parents have given every penny they have to someone to manage with less consideration than you just used to whether I can borrow your car, which I could write a check for you for now. And so what I'm saying is you have to be your own advocate there. If you don't learn enough about any financial underpinnings of where your money is actually going and what they place it in, where, listen, if you called someone to fix something, you live at a residence, I'm sure, a plumber or a carpenter or anybody doing some drive, you're going to say, what are you doing? How are you doing? What's your expertise? Blah, blah, blah. You're going to make sure they're certified. Right now, people can just have a certified financial planner thing and show whatever history of people. And I'm not saying they're not all good, not all qualified. That's not the point. The point is, I think people need to really take a little bit more interest in. Even talking to one of my sisters now, which I won't name one, and maybe I shouldn't have said a relative, but I was talking to her recently while this is going on. She goes, I really need to look at more of that stuff. This is while it's going down. She said she thinks she's in this, but maybe they never communicate. She hopes, and then she says, well, she hopes her financial person's taking care of that. Now, when she finally calls or looks in that account, it may look completely different than what she thinks because she doesn't even know how she's allocated. And she's a smart person, runs her own business. But the point is she's out there working, building her business, going to deal with her clients and stuff. Yet her assets are being affected in 10 days, and she doesn't even know the extent of it. She doesn't even know where they are. I mean, as far as, okay, how much they're in, high quality bonds or high quality instruments, short term duration versus long term duration. Those kinds. She couldn't tell me. And again, she is smart. She's 100% focused on her business. But what I'm saying is, I believe that people can be smart, focused on their business, and do that too. And educating yourself a little bit so that you are a good interviewer and a good custodian of that. Trust me, you'll get better financial people working around you if they know that you understand it. Because you're going to ask them a whole different set of questions. That's my thought. So if you end up getting 10 minutes worth of stuff from all this, it's all good.
Thank you, Brad. This has
welcome.
been a very deep episode of the Eureka Moments Only podcast. We've dug into so many different areas. And thank you to you, the watcher and the listener, that has made it this far.
That will now have to go through a 5-segment journey.
Right.
So it's okay. We'll do one like, poker, chess, all of that, other things. It could be fun. That way you tune in as you like.
And the last Eureka moment, the one thing that you said to me on the phone too, is you said, how long have you been talking on the phone? 15 minutes. Do I feel present? Am I present on this phone call? And I said, yeah, you're present on this phone call. I think you brought your full presence to this interview today. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I try to do that.
All
if
right.
I do nothing else, I'll try to do that. All right. Great, Chris.
That's it. Thank you very much.